I've been walking a tightrope between fact and fiction. Been wrestling with demons in small bottled prisons. Been talking to sinners who claim to be Christian, but shouting at leaders who claim to be listening. And the pendulum swings, but I can't stop the pull. Our elections are travesties paid for in full by a gang full of sellouts who worship a bull. Why can't it all just be free?
Well, hello, welcome to Free and Equals Network. I've got Christina Tobin here. I'm the founder and chair of Free and Equal. We are the grassroots movement here to unite everybody across the spectrum against the two-party stranglehold. And gosh, I feel honored. I've got Amber Lyon here. It's so great to have you here, Amber. You're a former CNN investigative reporter. You're a whistleblower, journalist, photographer, and this is one of my first times ever interviewing anyone, so it's going to be kind of fun. I'm excited to open up dialogue and really get to know you better and get you more familiar with our Free and Equal supporters worldwide. How are you doing today, Amber?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on, Christina. It's an honor.
Well, it's so great being connected with a leader out there, Amber. I just, getting to know you and a lot of honest media, not only in the U.S., but worldwide, and our experience doing the debate with Larry King, it just has connected me with so many great people. And I have had the honor of not only interviewing with you, I guess, as a political correspondent during one of our presidential debates, but also getting to know you a lot on the phone. And I just would like you to introduce yourself to our supporters first time. I look forward to interviewing you a lot down the road. And so who are you and how did we come about meeting? I just would like to get to know you as a person.
Yeah, I am a person who's very passionate about protecting the Constitution through journalism and protecting human rights and environmental rights. I've been that way my entire life, and I am blessed at this age to be able to have a platform journalistically to really try to make a difference and get some of these important stories out to the public. After spending about a decade in the corporate press, I finally have gone independent and feel free and equal more than I've ever felt in my life. As you mentioned earlier, I came from CNN. I'd been there 2 years as an investigative correspondent and in their documentary and investigative unit. And eventually just the values of the network didn't coalesce with my values as a journalist and my values as a muckraking journalist. And so eventually our unit was dissolved in April of 2012, and I was laid off. But before that, I'd had issues with the network when I was trying to cover the situation in Bahrain and the horrific human rights abuses going on there by the U.S.-backed regime. And I ran into some red tape covering that story, whereas stories about Syria and other more pro-U.S. popular stories it was very easy to get those on the network. It was very difficult for me to report on Bahrain. And I later found out that that was in part because the Bahrain regime has been paying CNN not only for advertising, but also for hour-long programs that really make the regime look popular. And the more I researched into it, the more I found that the network was taking money from other governments worldwide, many who've been accused of having horrific human rights abuse records, and taking that money and producing actual content that they sprinkle into their daily news programming that viewers aren't aware that it's being sponsored by these governments. And I feel like it's defrauding viewers, it's defrauding CNN's own journalists. I felt defrauded when I found out that I'd spent so much time trying to expose this regime and these horrific rights abuses, and then I found out on the other side of the building they were taking money from the same regime. Journalistically, we're supposed to be watchdogs on governments. It's very difficult when you're taking money from governments to be a watchdog. It's difficult for the network to bite the hand that feeds it. So I whistleblown on that, and now am working independently to get a lot of the stories that I wanted to get on air while I was at the network and couldn't, to get them out to the public. And also, now that I have more freedom, I was able to participate and was introduced to you, Christina, through Ty Loomis of intellectualrevolution.tv, which is a fabulous knowledge aggregation site that I recommend anyone, if you are just browsing YouTube, or you're one of those who likes to fill your head with knowledge that's actually useful and true depictions of U.S. history, to head to intellectualrevolution.tv. It's a great website. I'm sure you've spent a lot of time on there as well, Christina.
Yeah, those guys are super cool. Ty Loomis, Matt McKinney. Definitely look forward to meeting you in face to face for the first time in LA with those guys. And what's so neat about them is that they're athletes. I mean, pro athletes, volleyball, some basketball there too, but primarily volleyball. And they're just down to earth people who love the world, the United States, and want to make it a better place, like you and I. So it's just neat to have all these things in common. And yeah, they were able to connect us with you, to have you as a correspondent for one of our two presidential debates. I've been told that between the two debates, over 20 million people viewed them worldwide. So that was really cool. And I'm so glad that we got you on board there. And, it's interesting. You talk about CNN and all of the money behind media. And a lot of that I didn't even know until now, as I'm just scrolling through your wiki page for like the 20th time. And I learned a lot even from the presidential debate fiasco that, the Commission on Presidential Debates, I think, gosh, over $50-60 million is given to the commission, which is run by the former Democratic and Republican chair, but it's given by the elite, the people at the top tied to Rockefeller, Rothschild, and so on. But the scary part is that this money then in return is used to have major networks like ABC, NBC, probably CNN, and CBS and so on to sponsor the debates. And it's just amazing the money behind it. If you just follow the trail, comes right to the top. So, the commission is just used as a tool, right? Seems.
And you watch the debates, like CNN did host one of the debates, and you had Candy Crowley moderating it, and she didn't ask any tough questions to the candidates. And as a journalist who's supposed to be a watchdog on the government, it was really upsetting. I was disappointed in her performance and the majority of the moderators in the more mainstream debates and their performances, because they weren't muckrakers. Instead, they were puppets. And that's a shame. And that's a shame to our country and to viewers that really needed to be educated on more important and controversial topics like the NDAA. None of the moderators asked about that, like the drone program, like potential war with Iran. They didn't get into enough detail on those vital topics. And that's what I loved about the Free and Equal debates, is those questions were actually posed. And you guys had the gumption to actually ask the questions that weren't being asked.
Yeah, it was really great. And we look forward to doing many more debates at state, local levels, and of course, presidential. We hope to, I guess, replace or put the Commission of Presidential Debates out of business, per se, because, we foresee us linking up or creating our own network, or maybe our network will be Amber Lyon show and Ben Swan, maybe Judge Napolitano, when he finishes his contract at Fox, will do his own thing independently. I know he's got some handcuffs behind his back too. We were really interested in having him as a moderator at one point for the first presidential debate, but there was no breaking through Fox. It was very clear that he's pretty much owned by them. Doesn't mean he agrees with it, but he's stuck in a contract. I feel bad for him, but we got Larry King, so it all worked out. But in any case, it was a very insightful experience because getting to know you and other journalists like Tom Hartman. He runs the #1 progressive radio show in the United States. He was a correspondent, left leaning, of course, and to Josh Tolley, up and coming, really great guy. Ben Swan. I'd like to get to know a little bit more about how you felt, being with CNN and having your hands tied behind your back. How did you just decide that you were going to break away from that? I feel like people like Judge Napolitano, Ben Swan, some of them are kind of stuck in a similar situation. It's not good, but they will break away.
I hope so. I was there, like I said, for 10 years, and I was constantly having, having disagreements with my bosses and seeing journalism, the definition of journalism not being followed at these networks. Our role as watchdogs. And even when I was when I was in local news, and then when I got to CNN, like I said, I was eventually, to clearly let everyone know what happened. I was laid off in April 2011, but before that, it had been about a year and a half of constant kind of I guess you'd say not fighting per se, but journalistically fighting for stories with my bosses to get stories on. And I wondered why I had to push so hard to get these stories on because they were so vitally important journalistically. Like the story of the people suffering in Bahrain. That story was so important to tell because I was serving as a watchdog on the U.S. government by telling that story since we're backing the regime and giving them weapons. Also, the Occupy story. You know, I don't tell this story a lot, but I was sitting down one time at dinner with the president of programming at CNN at one of the most elite steakhouses in New York City. And this is after I had spent almost a week living in Zuccotti Park, so I was a mess. I'm sitting down to dinner with him, and he proceeds to tell me that Occupy doesn't deserve to be covered and that he's in the 1%. And why am I so against the 1%? And he almost seemed offended by Occupy. And we saw the stranglehold in the media. They didn't cover Occupy. And I actually had to sneak the Occupy story into an anonymous documentary on the Hacktivist Collective to get the story told because there was such a culture around CNN of, oh gosh, you're covering Occupy again. Ugh, we're so sick of that movement. And that culture was a trickle-down effect from the heads of CNN. They were sending that culture around CNN, and journalistically that bothered me so much, and I had many sleepless nights between that story and the Bahrain story as I saw both of those stories get crushed by this outlet that had the potential to really make a difference and tell the truth. And I said I can't do that anymore. I can't. Complacent journalists are killing journalism, and I got to the point where I felt like I'd rather be unemployed and living out of my car, which I've done in the past. Journalism is not the most profitable career when you're starting out. Than working and making a ton of money and working for a network where I felt like I was compromising my integrity. There's only so long you can make excuses and blame your bosses before you have to really turn around and blame yourself for staying at a place like that you don't trust. And now that I'm independent, like I was saying earlier, I feel so free, and I feel like I've really been able to go back to my roots as a journalist and really try to be what I wanted to be originally, and that was, one of these muckraking journalists like the Nellie Bly's and Upton Sinclair's who really get in there and expose corruption.
Well, you really have an amazing heart and integrity and so beautiful from within, and I commend you for doing that. And it just reminds me that there's far more honest people, whether it's just honest everyday people, media, authors, musicians, and so on out there than there are not. And here at Free and Equal, we're here to unite that movement. And I've never heard that story about Occupy Wall Street. It's very insightful. Thank you for that, and for our listeners too, because there is, a huge group of people within the Occupy movement, to the Tea Party movement that, both movements have essentially been co-opted, and the real people, the real independents across the spectrum are waiting for that pure movement, and that's really what we are here at Free and Equal, here to build up those entities. Our agenda is just to break the stranglehold of the two-party system, and you really hit it right there. I mean, the two-party system all ties in, I think, what I see, Amber, with the media, and the elite, the Federal Reserve. That's a whole nother topic. We'll have some experts on the Federal Reserve as well. But I want to kind of spin this more in a positive direction. And we didn't mention up. I mean, you have Emmy awards. I mean, you have a lot of credentials and backgrounds, and a lot of great things on your resume or Wikipedia page that is here. And as I'm going through it, and I kind of want to go a little bit more into the future of what you want to do and how you set your reporting apart from the rest. I think you said you're going to kick something off in the upcoming months. I'd love for you to elaborate on that. And Free and Equal is definitely here to help you in any way we can in the future to help build that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I went from a stage of raising awareness about the corporate media since I felt such a duty to be a whistleblower since I'd come from within. But I feel like there's only so much good I can do just pointing at the negative. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And now I've moved to a solutions-based train of thought, and I have become an entrepreneur, and I've seen that is the only way. I figure I could just go and try to build my name and write books and do my own thing, but what happens when I'm gone? I want to make sure I put a strong foundation down so that future journalists don't have to go through, excuse my language, all the crap I had to endure. for the last 10 years in the corporate media. So I'm creating a media outlet for just pure muckraking investigative journalism. It's actually called muckraker.com. And when people go onto the site, they're not going to get, celebrity photo galleries, and they're not going to get all of this junk kind of intertwined with journalism. It's just going to be pure journalism. You stop on this site, and in 20 minutes, you know what you need to know for the day. And so that's what I'm starting now. I'm launching in English and Arabic because I've noticed that the corporate media outlets have a habit of translating stories about the U.S. into Arabic, and the Arabic translation of the story is completely different than the English story, if that makes sense. Because they figure most people in the U.S. can't read Arabic, and so they don't notice all the propaganda added into the story and how the facts are even changed and spun to this world. And I feel like there's a thirst to know what's happening in the U.S. and the Arabic world, obviously, because of all the wars that have been started. So we're launching in Arabic and English right off the bat, and hoping to launch in April or May. That's our target launch date, and really just hoping to build this up into an outlet that will allow people coming out of journalism school and fabulous muckraking journalists, allow them to have a home for their work and support, and editors that will let them take risks and let them tell the truth. And if I can provide that and provide a lasting legacy of reminding people what journalism is, then I will finally be able to hopefully relax. So we'll see, Christina. But that's my goal. So muckraker.com, where we are very excited for it.
And how do you spell that?
Muckraker. And it has to do with the muckraking journalists of the 1920s. That was really the last time we had pure journalism in the U.S. And you had people like Nellie Bly, who would check herself into a mental institution to prove they were abusing patients, or Upton Sinclair, who went undercover and worked in a meat packing plant, and then wrote a book about how they don't handle the meat correctly and how they abuse the workers, and they were really submersion journalists who got into the story to discover the truth, and they were passionate journalists, and they were making a difference, and that's why they were crushed by advertisers and the elite after the 1920s. And we really haven't seen that kind of muckraking journalism since, because it's been squashed with lawsuits.
Wow, I'm glad you gave a little bit of history on that. I wanted our listeners to be able to find your website in the future, so thanks for that. And I'm looking at here in the 2011 Arab Spring, and your battle here, it looks like pretty much head to head with the United Nations. In Bahrain, it says that when they were using the tear gas as a crowd control device, you reported that it was approved by the United Nations. I'm definitely not hearing many positive things from the United Nations and the Federal Reserve. There's a lot of ties there. Before we kind of go into the direction of long-term, what we're going to be doing together, can you tell me a little bit more of your feeling about, from NDAA to Patriot Act, United Nations to the Federal Reserve and so on? Just would like to hear more about that from you.
It's, well, just to be blunt, it's scary, especially now that we have NDAA 2013. I just feel like we're losing our rights to protest in this country. We're losing our rights to expose corruption as journalists in this country. And that is something that does scare me. And if you look at the NDAA 2013, it now legalizes propaganda. So it allows the State Department to feed propaganda to the U.S. public, overturning the Smith-Mundt Act passed after Nazi-era Germany for obvious reasons. They didn't want the government feeding propaganda directly to the people. Well, now they've legalized that. It also provides a blueprint for war with Iran, which is, it says that it's U.S. policy to attack Iran if it's a threat. It's a very vague term, threat. Anyone can be a quote-unquote threat. And then once again, it continues the indefinite detention, which also is something that indefinite detention without trial of U.S. citizens and foreigners alike. And that's something that worries me as a journalist, because we can be caught in a situation where we are accused of helping terrorists if we don't reveal sources for a story, and we can be indefinitely detained. Whether that ever happens doesn't matter, because it creates a chilling effect no matter what. So that's worrisome as well. So I think it's more, it's so vital to get Free and Equal up and running, to get all of your new plans for 2013 up and running, and raise more awareness about everything that's going on. And also, what I love about what you do, Christina, is you're really looking at solutions instead of just pointing at the negative, because people are so overwhelmed now. They know stuff's happening, and I hear over and over people tell me, well, we know things are screwed up, but how do we fix them? And that's what the people need now. They need solutions, and they need people to give them blueprints as to how they can get their power back and feel like they're in control again.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, we know the problems. We're here to create that powerful, peaceful, positive movement across the spectrum to break the stranglehold of the two-party system. And, as you speak about the United Nations, a month or a couple months ago, I lose track of time, but I was a keynote at an In the Fed rally out in, of all places, Little Rock, Arkansas. And we've got great leaders, 6, 7, 8, free and equal state leaders out there now. Mark Daniels is our main guy out there, a really great gentleman, another leader by the name of Dugan King. Wow, what an expert on the Federal Reserve. I mean, I sat down and he's been studying it for 35 years, and the money behind it, the mastermind of it being an independent entity. It's not, government, it's independent entity. And it's just scary, it's all tied to Rockefeller, Rothschild, the oil companies. And, and I get to see, I look more closely at the two-party system, Democrats, Republicans alike. I don't blame fault. I have no anger towards the politicians, never will. I feel sorry for them. I feel bad for them. I mean, they're really at the beck and call of the people that have money at the top, warmongers, some say, that benefit from not only controlling the money, but United Nations, world order. And so we've got to break that stranglehold, not only within the United States of the two parties, but worldwide. And when we do that in America, and we will, and the way we do that is by creating that movement, again, a peaceful, positive, independent movement. And we replaced the D's and R's with the local races in 2014. And we're here to create the platform to give those honest individuals through what you're doing, Amber, in April, May, to the Ben Swans, to the Tom Hartman, to musicians like Smashing Pumpkins and so on, Michael Franti and to Maroon 5, Adam Levine, all different genres of all together, from leaders from Ron Paul to Ralph Nader to Jesse Ventura, honest authors like John Lott, and reading books like The Truth About FDR, The Creature of Jekyll Island, Mr. Griffin, bringing them all together to educate, to inform. And that's how we fix it, just uniting all the good people together. So worldwide. So, on that note, in the upcoming months, Amber, I look forward to talking to you more about Little Rock. We would be super honored here at Free and Equal to fly you out there and have you hold a mic and interview all these different people we're going to bring together. And wow, it may turn into a 10-stop bus tour throughout the United States to all the big universities, but we're looking at in Arkansas, and I think it's Fayetteville. I hope I pronounced that right. The largest university out there in Arkansas. We're looking to getting the youth, inspired and waking them up. And I guess my question is, what do you think with the youth, 18, 28-year-olds, so on? What kind of role do you think they're going to play? And how powerful do you think between the youth and social networking or media and so on? And, how much of an impact do you think that will have on making the world a better place, not only in America, but worldwide?
The youth now never fail to amaze me. I think the majority of my Twitter followers are college students, and the amount of information and how aware and awake they are is unbelievable. And that's, thank goodness, to things like Facebook and Twitter, because whereas when I was in college, about 8 years ago, I never really was given the full breadth of information because we didn't have Facebook and Twitter, and things were screened obviously by the mainstream media. And now this generation is a generation that has been, they're coming of age and they're awake as well. And so they have that energy and that passion, and they know what's going on, and they can put it to good use. And that gives me so much hope. And I love the idea of the tour and really galvanizing all of these students nationwide and getting them on board. I think they have tremendous potential to make some serious change, mostly because they're so young and they have the energy to do it and the passion, and they haven't been as worn out as the older generations who've been through Iraq and Afghanistan, and really a lot of people you just find that are angry and disheartened. I feel like this generation is more looking for solutions.
Wonderful. Well, we do look forward to one of our next interviews will likely be with Ty Loomis and Matt McKinney with intellectualrevolution.tv. We're hoping that they may be able to and likely join our tour throughout the United States. Our interview after that, already confirmed, will be with Jill Stein and Gary Johnson. Jill Stein's the former Green Party presidential candidate, as well as Gary Johnson, former libertarian. And we anticipate they'll be involved, if not on one stop, if not all 10 stops of our tour throughout the United States. So definitely, Amber, we'd be honored to have you be a part of that tour, if not only Little Rock, but if it falls into place, which is likely to be the case, all 10 stops, having you, Ben Swan, and others really anchor and reach out, and whether the TV series or shows or documentary, reality show, one that first of its kind type of reality show, not the, the way people perceive it, but really getting the truth out there, positive, and, approaching politicians and leaders and, well, why are you doing this? I mean, Ben Swan, heck, he interviewed Obama, I believe, right, on the NDAA. I called it right out, and I mean, different topics, and just kind of always giving them the benefit of the doubt. But, I feel sorry for a lot of them, and I hope we can break them out of politics and bring people like ourselves or people that we're going to inspire to replace them, and the world will be much better. So I hope you can be a part of that, Amber, in the future, in the near future.
I love the work that you guys are doing, and it gives me hope, and it's definitely something I would love to be a part of. And I also love how you say you don't look at the politicians with anger. You look at them more as the true role that unfortunately they have, and that's more of puppets and slaves to the money. And it is sad, because I think there are a lot of good politicians who kind of got sucked into this corrupt vortex, and they really have no way out at this point. And it is really sad. And hopefully, there are ways to come up with more solutions to get them out of it and get the American people out of this mess as well. So I'm on board, definitely.
Yay. We'll be sure to highlight that when we announce this podcast, not only to our nationwide media list, thanks to all the press out there listening to this whole interview here at Free and Equal. We're creating our own media and hope that you can all be a part of it too. All the good ones out there that are hanging by a thread, like Amber Lyon was at one point with CNN and others as well. So, and to all of our supporters listening as well, thank you so much for joining the Free and Equal Network today. We look forward again to having Ty and Matt McKinney with intellectualrevolution.tv on our next podcast. And Jill Stein and Gary Johnson as well, as our podcast will be evolving into a network and studio throughout LA, TV. Who knows? It's amazing how quickly we're growing. So thanks again. If you want to check out more information, check us out at freeandequal.org. Again, freeandequal.org, and we love having you on the show. It's our first time interviewing anyone, and Amber, I feel so honored to have you a part of something so different from me. So thank you so much for hanging out, and it's been great getting to know you more. I can't wait to see you in LA in a couple weeks.
I look forward to meeting you, Christina, and keep up the good work. It was an honor. I'm Amber Lyon, and you're listening to the Free and Equal Network. This is Amber Lyon, and you're listening to the Free and Equal. Free and Equal.
That was a verbal disaster. I think we're going to use that one right
there. This is Amber Lyon, and you're listening to the Free and Equal Network.
There you go. That one was hot.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Well, lots of love. Lots of love.